Hello again. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's take a look at this story now. Today, members of Parliament will be able to ask President Jacob Zuma questions to give more insight on today's proceedings during question time in the National Assembly. We're now joined by the Secretary of the National Assembly in Parliament, Masibulelo Khaso, who is in our Cape Town studio. Mr. Khaso, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the President will be sitting for the second time today. The first sitting, we all remember, was disrupted, many saying that that was unprecedented. What happens this time around in terms of processes and procedures?
Well, the sitting of the 11th of March went smoothly. It was robust, but members asked questions and the President responded to the questions. And we are expecting that today the same will happen when we deal with the questions that were not reached on the 21st of August.
We are expecting President Jacob Zuma to make a pronouncement or a statement at least regarding the xenophobic attacks. That information is on the media as we speak. But what other questions are on the agenda? Perhaps remind us from the last time. At
2 o'clock or at the start of the sitting, the President will indeed make an executive statement, a statement on the violence in KwaZulu-Natal. Parties will be afforded an opportunity to respond to the statement. And thereafter, we will then proceed to the questions that were not reached on the 21st of August. And one of the questions relate to the recognition of the Khoi and the San as indigenous leaders, traditional leaders. And another question relates to presidential pardons. That question comes from the IFP, I think it's Mr. Mwango. And the one that I just referred to now comes from the ANC. And the third question comes from the National Freedom Party. And that question relates to the US Africa Leaders Summit that was held in August last year. So those are the questions that will be dealt with today as per the agreement of the Programme Committee and the Chief Whips Forum and the whips within Parliament.
Bearing in mind yesterday's Cape High Court ruling in favour of the economic freedom fighters, some MPs saying that this will have a direct bearing on behaviour, if I can say that, in Parliament. Now, in light of what's happening today, MPs saying that they will behave, should the President be in line with what is expected of him today? Could you speak to us about whether or not you're expecting any disruptions this time around?
Well, I really cannot speculate on whether there will be disruptions. Of course, I always expect that, because we're dealing with honourable members here, I always expect that members realize the need for the NA to hold the executive accountable and for the sittings of the NA to run smoothly. So I'm not expecting a disruption. I should not expect a disruption. That is what we are expecting. There's an agenda for the day. And it is my expectation, because members had been asking for this session to be scheduled. The session has now been scheduled, and it's an opportunity to interact with the President on the issues that members have been wanting to interact with the President on. So that is really what is expected, as far as I'm concerned, this afternoon.
You're dealing with honourable members, is what you have said, but the honourable members at time have acted, shall we say, a little bit out of character for honourable members. Should there be any disruptions, what is the procedure and the processes that should take precedence there?
The presiding officers are empowered to apply the rules and the law, and whatever situation that arises in the House this afternoon, the presiding officer will deal with that in terms of both the rules and the law. As I say, it's difficult to anticipate what could or what will happen, except to say that we have an agenda today, debate first on the statement by the President, and the questions that the President will be responding to this afternoon. Anything else and everything else, in fact, pertaining to the sitting has to be dealt with in terms of the rules and the law that is applicable.
Just in terms of those rules and the laws that are applicable, for clarity's sake, the questions that will be answered today are the ones that were carried over from August. So anything new that has arisen, perhaps the purchases of the jets or anything that has happened recently, that is not up for debate or discussion today. Am I correct?
Certainly not today, but yes, certainly not today. That is not That is not on the agenda for today. There are specific questions on the agenda for today. We do not know what will be the questions at the next question session on the 18th of June when the President comes back to respond to questions. Yeah.
All right, we'll have to leave it there, at least for now. 2 o'clock is when we are expecting to hear the proceedings there in Parliament, and we do believe that President Jacob Zuma will be addressing the issue of xenophobia. He has spoken out against it, not only exclusively to SABC, as was the case. We brought you that story in the news update, but also previously also making utterances against it. It is something that is at the forefront of the country, making headlines not only in South Africa, but further afield for all the wrong reasons. So just one of the issues that will be addressed in Parliament as the questions are carried over from August following the disruptions. Then President Jacob Zuma will be answering them today. 2 o'clock is when the proceeding is expected to commence there.